Hi, welcome to Computer Active TV. Today we're joined by David M, who's the Senior Security Researcher at the security company Kaspersky Labs. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tom.
First thing we wanted to ask you, if you look in the news or you read magazines, you can't get away from the warnings about the dangers of being on the internet, all the risks that are out there for computer users. Do you think that sometimes these dangers are actually slightly overhyped?
Well, I don't think there's overhype, but I think we have to sort of realise that we're very close to what the problem is. And that problem is very real, but that's not to say that every single person out there using a computer is likely to fall victim to each and every threat that we talk about. So there's certainly a real serious potential threat. But I think the way I always look at it is it's similar to the offline world. We all know about knife crime. We all know that bullying happens in school. We all know that, when you go out you could get mugged or there are pickpockets around. But that doesn't mean we all fall victim to it, because we know that we can take steps to minimise our exposure to that risk.
Okay. One other question we get asked very often is that there's so many security products that are out there on the web these days that are completely free, things like AVG or Avast Antivirus, that kind of thing. Sure. Obviously, Kaspersky charges somewhere about £30 to £50 for its security suite, depending on which version you buy. Sure. What advantages are there to actually paying for a product like this rather than just using the free ones? Why should people pay?
Well, I think the key thing to that is if you look at the technologies which are available, we've moved away really from a solution which relies just on signature scanning for known threats. And there are so many other technologies in there, including whitelisting, including virtual keyboard to keep you protected during an online transaction. There are technologies surrounding behavioral analysis and sandboxing. There's anti-spam firewall. There's a whole range of technologies now. And if you compare the free products that are out there, they tend to be focused very much around traditional antivirus. And it's my view certainly that the technology needs to be much wider than that now. And that's what you get with a paid product. But beside that, it's also important to realise that we're in an area where there's a service element which is every bit as important as the technology we make available to customers. And there are times when people need somebody on the end of a telephone to guide them through removal of a particular threat, or to give them guidance in setting up, configuring their product. And that support infrastructure is really important, and you can't provide that for free.
Sure. What do you think the biggest real threats are that are out there for home PC users, for everyday PC owners?
Well, about 90% of the threats we see right now are Trojan horse programs, and the ones that are centred around harvesting personal information. And that could be email addresses, it could be threats that gather credit card numbers, or threats that come with a keylogger built in, which are capturing what we type in real time. It's those things which are harvesting personal information which are the biggest threat really out there to consumers right now.
Okay. You mentioned Trojan horses. Could you just explain very quickly what that is?
Yeah, the concept comes from the Greek wars, where you have something which appears to be a gift, it appears to be something which is benign, but actually within it there's a hidden agenda. So you welcome it into your home, or into your computer in this case, and what you don't know is that when you run it, it actually launches something which is undesirable, harmful, which installs clearly without consent. And so most Trojan programs are designed to carry out some sort of harmful operation. And as I say, the most serious of those really are looking to gather information on your system, gather information on what you're typing in, harvest personal information, which then can be used by cyber criminals.
We've been writing a lot lately about Trojan programs that actually pretend to be security software.
Yes.
Huge problem online at the moment. What's the best way for people to actually know when they're online, well, what is a legitimate security product, and how can you spot these fake ones that are actually dangerous in some cases? It's
really, really difficult. I think, as a general issue, it's a little bit like trying to look for radioactivity with the naked eye. You can't do it. And that's really why you have specialist programs designed to provide a protective layer around your computer system. I think the key here is know what your chosen security product is, and if something else comes online which purports to be offering you protection, you've got to resist the temptation to say, look, I've chosen my security product, I know what it's meant to look like, I know what the icon in the system tray looks like, I don't need anything else. And if at any stage you're not happy with your chosen product, then look around at legitimate products that you know about, that you can read about in the computer magazines. and you know, make another choice. But certainly don't, just as you wouldn't open the door to people who come cold calling, don't open your door to products that come cold calling online either.
Sure. One other problem that people often complain about with security software is false positives. The idea of you have files on your computer or you have websites that you know are safe, but sometimes antivirus or security software will pick them up and warn you about them. Why does this happen, and what can people do when it does occur?
Sure, it is a really serious problem, because actually a false positive can be as significant in terms of reducing your confidence in your computer system as a real threat can be. Now, we add around about 5,000 new signatures every day, and through our virus lab we see about 17,500 unique samples every day.
Those signatures, they're the files that you use to actually detect a virus on the computer?
Exactly. In very broad terms, you know, we have a pattern matching system, and if it's like looking at an excerpt and identifying a movie. These are little excerpts which identify this Trojan or that Trojan or this worm or that worm. So, you know, we're adding 5,000 a day, and we go through significant testing procedures in order to minimize any risk of a false positive, but you can't eliminate it completely. And just to make it clear, a false positive is where we say there's a threat there, when actually it's a perfectly innocent program. So as I said, we have huge testing rigs, and what we do is we fill those with as many real-world applications as we can, and we scan against them. The idea being that if in the test phase we generate a false positive, then, you know, we can fix it then before our product gets into the real world. But you can't eliminate the risk completely. What our advice would be is, you know, if you've got a program which you think is perfectly legitimate, and your antivirus or your internet security product is saying there's a threat there, send it in to the lab for analysis, and they'll give you a double check on that.
Sure. One other problem is that many of the people watching this might be actually quite clued up on how to keep their computer safe, but quite often they're not the only people using the computer.
Yes.
Often people have kids using the computer, and often kids can be incredibly aware of how to get around any software that might be on there. How can people actually ensure that they keep their computer safe when there are kids who might be able to, if they get a warning about a website, for example, just circumvent that warning and go there anyway?
Sure. Well, there's two sides really to internet security. There's the side which relies on technology, your firewall, your antivirus and so on. There's also the side which is less easy, which is based around kind of trying to develop an online common sense to match, you know, the advice we give children and so on in the offline world. Now, the key here is, yes, you put the technology in place to make sure you can block any threats that come your way, but you need to also use some common sense. So, for example, set up a login for each of your children and assign specific rights and a password, and assign a password to your own login as well, so that they can't just log in and masquerade as you. They don't have admin rights on the system. But also, you know, take that as far as password protecting your internet security product, so that your children can't either accidentally or deliberately tamper with the protection settings. So it's really about securing your system in its widest sense, not just using the internet security technology, but appropriate use of passwords, using appropriate passwords, not just, you know, doubling up and recycling them for every different resource you use. So it's a general common sense combined with technology.
Okay, David, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
And you'll find lots more information about computer security on the Computer Active website, and if you look beneath this video, you'll also find a link to Kaspersky's website.